Welcome to my channel.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that might surprise you. If you've been learning English for a long time but still struggle to speak naturally, you might think your grammar is the problem. Maybe you're thinking, I need to study more grammar. Or perhaps you keep buying grammar books, watching grammar lessons, and memorizing rules, hoping that one day you'll finally become fluent. But what if grammar isn't actually the main problem? What if you're missing something else? To help us explore this idea, I'm joined by our guest, Emma. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And I think this is a really important topic because grammar gets blamed for almost everything when it comes to learning English.
Exactly. Let's imagine someone who has studied English grammar for years. They know the difference between the present perfect and past simple. They understand conditionals. They know how to form questions. But when someone asks them a simple question in English, they freeze. Why does that happen?
Because knowing the rules and using the language are two different skills. You can know exactly how a sentence should be formed and still struggle to produce it quickly in a real conversation. It's similar to learning how to play a musical instrument. You can study music theory for years, but that doesn't automatically mean you can perform a song beautifully. You have to practice using the knowledge.
So, grammar knowledge is useful, but it isn't enough.
Exactly. Grammar gives you the structure. But speaking requires much more than structure. You need vocabulary, listening skills, pronunciation, confidence, and most importantly, practice.
Let's talk about practice. A lot of learners say, I practice English every day. But sometimes they mean they spend 30 minutes doing grammar exercises. Is that enough?
It depends on what your goal is. Grammar exercises can certainly help you understand how English works. But if your goal is to speak English naturally, you also need to practice producing English. That means speaking, writing, answering questions, telling stories, and expressing your opinions. You can't become a better speaker by only reading about speaking.
That's a really important point. It's almost like going to the gym and reading about exercise without actually exercising.
Exactly. You can learn about push-ups all day, but your muscles won't become stronger until you actually do them. Language works in a similar way. Your brain needs repeated practice to make English patterns more automatic.
So, if grammar isn't the main problem, what are English learners often missing?
I would say there are 4 major things: input, active vocabulary, speaking practice, and confidence. Let's start with input. You need to hear English regularly. If you're learning English but rarely listen to it, you're missing a huge part of the language.
Why is listening so important for speaking?
Because listening teaches you how English actually sounds in real life. Textbooks often show us complete sentences with perfect grammar. But real conversations are different. People speak quickly. They connect words. They use contractions. They use common expressions and informal phrases. For example, a learner may know the sentence, "What are you going to do?" But in natural conversation, they might hear, "What are you gonna do?" If you've only studied English from textbooks, that can be confusing.
That's true. Sometimes learners say, I know all these words, but I can't understand native speakers.
Exactly. That's why listening isn't just about understanding individual words. It's about becoming familiar with how English sounds when people actually use it.
What about vocabulary? You mentioned active vocabulary earlier.
Yes, and this is a big one. Many learners spend a lot of time memorizing vocabulary, but they don't actually use the words. They might know the word, recommend, for example, but when speaking, they always say, I think you should. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to expand your English, you need to take words from your passive vocabulary and turn them into active vocabulary.
How do we do that?
Use them repeatedly. Suppose you learn the word, beneficial. Don't just memorize its definition. Create sentences. Exercise is beneficial for your health. Reading is beneficial for language learning. It's beneficial to practice every day. Then try using the word when you speak. The goal is to make the word familiar enough that you don't have to search for it every time.
That makes sense. So, instead of learning 50 new words and forgetting most of them, it may be better to learn 10 words and actually use them.
Absolutely. Depth is often more valuable than quantity. It's better to truly know how to use 10 words than to recognize 50 words but never use them.
Now let's talk about something that's probably even more important: confidence. How does confidence affect language learning?
A lot. I've met many learners who actually have a good level of English, but they don't speak because they're afraid of making mistakes. They think, what if my grammar is wrong? What if I pronounce this word incorrectly? What if people think my English is bad? So they stay quiet. And unfortunately, silence doesn't improve speaking skills.
That's a painful truth. Sometimes people are waiting for confidence before they start speaking.
And that's the problem. Confidence usually comes from practice. You don't need to become confident first. You become confident by doing something repeatedly and realizing, hey, I can actually do this. Your first conversation might be uncomfortable. Your 10th conversation will probably feel easier. Your 100th conversation will feel even more natural.
So, confidence is a result of action, not a requirement for action.
Exactly. And there's another thing learners often overlook: thinking in English. If you translate every sentence from your native language before speaking, your conversations will naturally feel slower. Try describing simple things in English throughout the day. I'm hungry. I need to finish this work. It's really hot today. I wonder what I'll have for dinner. The more you do this, the more direct your connection with English becomes.
That's a great exercise because it doesn't require a teacher or a speaking partner.
Exactly. You can practice almost anywhere. While you're walking, cooking, driving, or getting ready for work. You don't need to turn every moment into a formal lesson. Just start using English as part of your daily life.
Let's come back to grammar for a moment. If grammar isn't a problem, does that mean learners shouldn't study grammar anymore?
No, definitely not. Grammar is important. It helps you communicate accurately and understand how sentences work. But grammar should be a tool, not a prison. Don't let the fear of making a grammar mistake stop you from speaking. Learn the rules, understand the patterns, and then practice using them naturally.
I love that phrase. Grammar should be a tool, not a prison. So, if someone wants to improve their English from today, what would you recommend?
I'd keep it simple. First, listen to English every day, even for 15 minutes. Second, learn useful phrases rather than isolated words. Third, speak every day, even if you're talking to yourself. Fourth, don't be afraid of mistakes. And finally, review your grammar when you notice a pattern of mistakes. Don't try to learn every grammar rule at once. Focus on the grammar you actually need.
That's much more practical than simply saying, study more grammar.
Exactly. Learning a language isn't about collecting rules. It's about building the ability to communicate.
Before we finish, Emma, I'd like to ask you one final question. If someone has been studying English for years but still feels stuck, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them not to assume they're bad at English. Maybe they simply haven't been practicing the right skills. If you've spent years studying grammar, try spending more time speaking. If you've been memorizing vocabulary, start using those words in conversations. If you rarely listen to English, make listening part of your daily routine. And most importantly, stop waiting for perfect English. Your English doesn't need to be perfect to be useful. You don't need to know everything. You just need to keep using what you know and gradually build from there.
That's a great message. So, perhaps the question isn't, how much more grammar do I need to learn? Maybe the better question is, how much English am I actually using?
Exactly. Because knowing English and using English are not the same thing. And if you want to become a better English speaker, you have to give yourself opportunities to speak.
Emma, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening. If you've been studying English for years but still struggle to speak, don't give up. You may not need another grammar book. You may simply need more opportunities to listen, speak, make mistakes, and use the English you already know. Remember, grammar can teach you how English works. Practice teaches you how to use it. So, don't just study English. Use it. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. And remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn.